Have a late show date with Dave. Now your local news.
KTAB News at 10 is next. Hundreds of teenagers, their parents, and their horses are in Abilene for a week. We'll tell you why. Traffic on I-20 in North Abilene was tied up for several hours by wreckage from an accident. Along with Sam's work week forecast and David with the highlights of the British Open next on KTAB.
This is KTAB News at 10. The most watched newscast in Abilene and the Big Country.
An earthquake under the ocean makes a killer wall of water in the South Pacific. Good evening. Thank you for choosing KTAB News tonight. Our top story is coming up, but first, Sam Nichols is in with your first forecast. Any break in the heat, Sam?
Well, in a word, no. It looks as though we're going to be stuck in this same weather pattern that we've experienced, but there's record heat in different places across the country. I'll tell you about that. As far as our first forecast for tonight, a gorgeous night out there. A lot of stars to be stargazing, 75 for an overnight low temperature and light southeast wind. I'll be back later on with more weather. Now, Bob has the top story.
All right, Sam, thank you. Our top story tonight is a follow-up from around the other side of the world, where some of the poorest people in the world are recovering from Mother Nature's devastation. Barry Peterson reports from Papua New Guinea.
In the devastated villages, this was a day to mourn the dead, dig the graves, and wonder that any had survived. It happened on a quiet Friday evening. Undersea earthquakes measuring up to 7 on the Richter scale triggered tidal waves as high as 33 feet. The only warning came as the first wall of water thundered ashore, sounding, said one survivor, like the roar of a jet fighter.
10 minutes after the earthquake, we had a loud bang, and then we just saw the sea rising up, and then it started moving towards the village, so we had no choice but to run for our life.
Villages, some with up to 2,000 residents, were swept away.
There are at least 1,000 dead. Many bodies are still lying on the shore. Many are still floating in the lagoon.
Surrounded by the dead in a lagoon, rescue workers found a miracle.
And I heard a splashing noise behind the back of a canoe, and there was a woman holding onto the canoe. She'd probably been in the water all night. I don't know how she survived in the water all night, but with these bodies around her. But it's quite horrific.
Nearby hospitals were overwhelmed and medical supplies quickly ran short. There was even a shortage of beds. Australia mounted a relief effort and started flying in food and medicine. Sadly, this is one of the poorest areas of the country, where people survived on what they could cull from the jungle or subsistence farming. Many of the houses were little more than huts, hardly able to withstand the force of the water or protect those inside. The death toll and the number of injured may rise in a place where a savage ocean turned a peaceful collection of small coastal villages into a killing field. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Tokyo.
Experts have not ruled out the possibility that another tsunami could hit that same area in the next few days. There was an overflow crowd at a funeral in Rotan this afternoon. 15-year-old Lauren Haley Helms died Friday night after falling out of the back of a pickup truck. Hundreds of family and friends were at the First United Methodist Church in Rotan for the 3 p.m. service, and several hundred were at a candlelight memorial last night. The popular Rotan High School girl hit her head on the pavement when she fell and never regained consciousness, despite help which arrived almost immediately after the accident. Traffic was tied up on Interstate 20 in North Abilene for several hours this afternoon. A Suburban pulling a travel trailer went out of control, trying to avoid another car entering Interstate 20. It happened on the eastbound side near the Pine Street overpass. That was about 12:20. The vehicles came to a stop in the median. The initial 911 call said that 6 or 7 cars were involved. Turns out those were just passers-by who had stopped to help. No serious injuries, but it took several hours to clean up the wreckage and get traffic moving normally on the interstate. The death toll is rising in Texas following weeks of temperatures